Major PSA, wheat and gluten are not the same thing. Gluten is a grain protein and wheat is a grain made up of carbohydrates, proteins, and vitamins and minerals. Just because something is gluten-free doesn't mean that it's wheat-free, and just because something is wheat-free doesn't mean that it's gluten-free. Let's break it down. Gluten is a grain protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. This grain protein helps provide structure to these grains and is also a huge problem for people with celiac disease or gluten intolerance. Wheat is a grain and it's primarily made up of carbohydrates, but there's also some proteins, minerals, and fats as well. There are 4 primary proteins in wheat. There's the gluten proteins, which is gliadin and glutenin. These proteins make up roughly 70 to 80% of the wheat's protein content. There's also albumins and globulins, I think I'm pronouncing that right, that make up the other portion of the protein within wheat. Wheat's also made up of a couple different types of starches, fiber, and a handful of minerals like magnesium, potassium, zinc, selenium, copper, and more. Something I keep coming across in the gluten-free and food allergy world is that people are interchangeably using wheat-free and gluten-free, and they are assuming that they mean the same thing. But as we know, something can be gluten-free but still contain wheat, and something can be wheat-free and still contain gluten. A prime example of something that is gluten-free but not wheat-free is gluten-free wheat starch. Gluten-free wheat starch is wheat that has been processed to remove all proteins, and you just have the remaining carbohydrates and starches left over. It goes through a very stringent process where those proteins are washed and washed and washed and washed and washed away. And ideally, this gluten-free wheat starch is certified gluten-free to make sure that it adheres to the safety standards to meet the gluten-free standard. However, the carbohydrates remaining are still made up of wheat. And that's why people with wheat allergies can't always rely on a gluten-free label, because there could be this gluten-free wheat starch in the product. An example of a product being wheat-free but not gluten-free is something like beef and barley soup. So while there's no wheat in a beef and barley soup recipe, there is barley, which does contain gluten, which is why people with celiac disease or gluten intolerance, or that follow a gluten-free diet for any other reason, cannot rely on a wheat-free label. They have to be looking for a gluten-free label. And when it comes to manufacturing products, food manufacturers need to fully understand the fact that gluten-free and wheat-free are 2 different things. Also, in the United States, gluten's not classified as a top allergen, so if someone is telling you that something is allergen-free, that does not mean that it's gluten-free. As always, if you live with celiac disease or food allergies, always read every single label. Do not rely on blanket wheat-free, gluten-free, allergen-free statements. We gotta investigate the ingredients, and we need to hold manufacturers accountable that label things that are free from something and ensure they're actually free from that thing. I'm Angela, your gluten-free BFF. Let me know if you have any more questions about celiac disease or food allergies in the comments below.